पहलगाम हमले के बाद भारत की तरफ से ये ऐलान किया गया कि जो सिंध-तास मुआहदा है उसको इन अबेंस डाला जा रहा है और ये भी कहा गया कि पाकिस्तान की तरफ बहने वाला जो पानी है इसको रोक दिया जाएगा। इस पर आलमी कम्युनिटी क्या सोचती है, क्योंकि ये जितना संजीदा और सीरियस मामला है, क्या इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी ये इदराक रखती है कि पाकिस्तान का रिस्पॉन्स इस पर बहुत सीरियस हो सकता है और बहुत बड़ा क्राइसिस पैदा हो सकता है? इस पर हम गुफ्तगू करते हैं। सो ज्वाइनिंग अस टुडे इज रिचर्ड लाइबी। ही इज़ अ जर्नलिस्ट एंड अ फॉर्मर वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट ब्यूरो चीफ एज वेल। Thank you for being on the show, Rich. Well, discussing about the Indus Water Treaty, you know that the populace in Pakistan heavily relies on the source that is the Indus water. And the recent endeavor by India to block the rivers, the western rivers specifically, how do you see this? Isn't this a treaty violation that India somehow agreed to? And what could be the implications if India goes on to violate the treaty?
Well, let's try to sort the propaganda from the truth. This treaty can put in abeyance a treaty, but it cannot suspend it. I think India has mischaracterized its power here. I think, of course, holding the treaty, keeping it together is of vital importance to Pakistan, because 80% of its farming resources rely on the rivers. So my sense is that there's a lot of bluffing. Fists are up on both sides. Just fought a 100-hour air war. And in those circumstances, leaders look for retaliatory measures. You cannot, I'm afraid to say, just as you cannot put your foot in the same river twice, which is an old expression, you can't turn off a river. In my view, you can build hydroelectric dams, you can use water as a weapon of war by turning off the spigot somehow, depriving populations. But practically speaking, this controversy, I believe, must go to one of the authorities where the treaty is negotiated.
No, but if those authorities are unable to impose something in a binding capacity, then how could we stop a state like India, which is disrespectful towards the international obligations that it has?
That's a very good question. Strong point I take very seriously. I have a fairly robust belief in the ability of even hostile actors to negotiate. I made a survey of phone calling around yesterday to try to get some of the biggest think tanks to talk to me. Middle East Institute, North Atlantic Council, U.S. Institute for Peace. Nobody would talk to me about this issue. Now, that either means they're all on vacation at once, or it's something Washington has a sensitivity about and really doesn't want to weigh in on. Remember, it's a signature accomplishment of President Trump to have gained a ceasefire in this war. And it's fragile, it's holding, but there are ways it can be disrupted. For example, this declaration about the Indus waters. My point being that there's a lot riding on that truce. And both nations are in a favored status with the United States. Pakistan, as you know, a major NATO non-partner. India has a designation that's similar, not NATO obviously, but so I think, the feeling I get, Washington wants to be above the fray here. And that doesn't mean anything particularly if fighter jets go up again. But I am sort of a optimist on this point.
I see.
Having done some done some reading on it. I'm an optimist.
But Richard, do you think there has been a building frustration from the Indian side regarding the renegotiation of the treaty? Because they conveyed it, intimated us back in 2012, 2013, if I'm not wrong, that we have to renegotiate this. Pakistan refuses. Then after 2018, they again come up with a pretext of a false flag operation, and then they say Indus Water Treaty cannot go on, blood and water cannot flow together. And now yet again, do you think it's frustration, and they have calculated that because of the water scarcity in the region, they have to do something about this, but their hands are tied because they have committed us something which they can't step out of right now?
Yeah, I mean, there have been 3 negotiations on this treaty in 60-some years, but it's fairly rare to try to unwind the watch, as it were. I mean, it is in place. They can be frustrated. Pakistan can be frustrated, and treaties can be broken. I mean, let's face it. You know, the United States had treaties with the American Indians. You know, we took over their lands. Not all those treaties were upheld completely. Anyway, you know, the Indians here have an independent nation state.
Yeah.
They're not part of the United States. So where I'm getting to is that all it takes is one unhinged autocrat to say, this doesn't matter anymore. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. We know that these characters arise in history. We know Adolf Hitler did not respect treaties. We know that, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but there are periods where other autocrats, I won't name them because it might get me in trouble, tear up the treaty in a flurry of propagandistic, you know, pique to say this isn't anything we're going to follow. It hurts the people.
I see. Richard, but do you think India can afford setting a precedent which could be counterproductive? Because if we are the lower riparian and they stop the flows of rivers to our territory, then China could do the same. I've heard a Chinese analyst say that if they do it to Pakistan, we can do it to them as well. So how can they afford to set a precedent which could go against their own cause?
Let's say that you know, this is not a real answer, but it's risky to do this. And, you know, I'm certain that Delhi triangulated all these possibilities before they came up with this, what we call a demand. Because, you know, nations have been in existence for a long, not in the case of India and Pakistan, not that long, but, you know, the United States had a treaty with Tripoli in the 1700s when U.S. ships were being attacked by the pirates, by Barbary pirates. And that was one of the first treaties.
It was called the Barbary Wars, if I'm not wrong, right? The first war that U.S. had to fight.
You're exactly right about that. And we know that it's a you know, it's a durable mechanism for countries to solve their differences, even if politicians are hotheads and there are smarter people, cooler heads that prevail. We have a chemical weapons treaty. We have an environmental treaty. We have treaties to preserve civilian life. And the thing is, in war, you know, I've covered 3 of them, actually, if you think about it. Civilians suffer the most. Who's going to suffer the most? The Pakistanis. 250 some million of them could feel the effects of this. And that is just not morally acceptable.
On the last note, Richard, because Pakistan has been facing environmental catastrophes in 2022, we faced the juggernauts of a massive flood, which kind of displaced millions of people. And now if we are deprived of our water share, things would get escalated to the point that this could be, as India claims, could be used as a weapon of war against us, weaponization of hydro resources. Do you think the international community realizes what is being done to us, and what could be the solutions to generate a debate globally that you can't just choke 240 million people living in a country just because you don't like a treaty to be in place?
Well, I think your point is very well taken. But will the international community rally to this? It took 9 years to get this treaty in place with the before the 60 before 1960. So there are governing bodies here, and I think when it's put in stark terms, the 240 million people are at risk because of this. I think your government can make a very strong case.
Yeah,
because there's no risk. There's no risk that I can see to India, except the opprobrium of the international community. But it's pretty well. I mean, Trump doesn't want this ceasefire to fall apart. Just as he's worked, and I don't want to run over time, but just as he's worked very, very hard to get the ceasefire in the Gaza and Iran matter, he wants to have that reputation to carry him out of office with.
So indeed, it's a test case for the global community as well, as you rightly pointed out. Thanks a lot for being on the show, Richard. नाज़रीन, रिचर्ड लाई भी हमारे साथ मौजूद ना। उनका यही था कि पाकिस्तान की हुकूमत का सिंतास मुआहदे के ऊपर जो केस है वो बिल्कुल हक बजानिब है, और जो आलमी कम्यूनिटी है उसको भी इस पर सोचना पड़ेगा।